Hello again, everybody! Zack Attack is here with my UFC 155 review for, well, last night, December 29th, early into December 30th, 2012. The final UFC pay-per-view of 2012. My thoughts on this pay-per-view. It almost reminded me of the last UFC pay-per-view, of how it went. UFC 154, which was, of course, the main event was Condit and GSP. That main event card went like 3 bad fights. Great knockout in the 4th round, first round knockout in the 5th match. The main event was just awesome. Well, it's almost like that in this pay-per-view, UFC 155. 3 shitty-ass fights to begin the card. The co-main event was amazing. The 5th match, the main event, had a decent start but kind of lagged in the last couple rounds. And let's just say in that 5th round, which is for the heavyweight championship, Revenge was indeed sweet. Of course, my overall rating for this pay-per-view, I'll give it a 6.0 out of 10. I'll give it that because it just wasn't. The first 3 fights were just unexciting. And the last 2 fights kind of saved the pay-per-view. There was only one really decent fight in this card. If there were more than one good fight, I would have rated it higher. But with only one really awesome fight, and the rest was just mixed bag. The first 3 sucked, and the main event was just good start, but okay, lousy finish. But still, decent finish. But anyway, that's why I gave it a 6.0. Wish it was better. Alright, let's kick off with the first 3 matches of the night, which you'll notice the theme of the first 3 going into the next couple rounds. We got, of course, Derek Brunson against Chris LEBEN. I got one more to say for this match, and the other 2. Boring. It was just uneventful. Like I said, the first 3 rounds were just uneventful fights. This fight was just a little bit boring. They had some grounded. It was mostly a wrestling match. It kind of reminded me of a shitty fight at Bellator. That's what Dana White should do. Fire both these guys, send them both to Bellator so they can suck. Chris Leben doesn't have what it takes anymore. Leben had a decent one, and he's trying to make a comeback trail, but unfortunately, this wasn't a good match. It was just boring, mostly ground and pound, mostly wrestling moves because they're both wrestlers. It was just uneventful, and Derek Brunson got the victory in unanimous decision. It was just uneventful. Just didn't suit my belt. Wasn't a good opener. I'll give them a 1.5. It was just boring. There was some okay things in it, but not a lot to save the fight. It was just mostly uneventful. So that's why I gave it a 1.5. Derek Brunson, your victor. He made his debut tonight. Who cares? Hope he comes back in his second fight, unless he gets cut. Now, our second fight, which was YUSHIN OKAMI taking on Ellen Belcher. Was it just me, or was the referee in this fight one of the replacement refs of the NFL trying to get a job? Anyway, that's what it felt like, because this match was like the first match, also uneventful. It was a little better than the first fight, but that ain't saying much. It was just mostly the same, okay, stand-up, but ground and pound as well, but it was just, like I said, like the first fight, just a very uneventful, boring fight, and they both deserved the blue butts at the end, and the fight eventually went to YUSHIN OKAMI, who was mostly dominant in this fight, but like I said, like the first one, just uneventful at best. Just lagged on and just slowed and just bored the crowd to tears. Not just at B-dubs, but at Vegas. I almost fell asleep during the first 3 fights. That's how this pay-per-view started out bad. So there you go. YUSHIN OKAMI defeated Belcher unanimous decision. The first 3 fights went, I think everybody went at least 3 or 5 rounds tonight. The first 2 ended in unanimous, and the next one didn't. So 1.7 for the second fight. It was just a little better than the first, but that ain't saying much. Alright, next up, in the middleweight division, I think all these fights were middleweight. Yeah, the first 3 matches were middleweight. No wonder why they sucked. They're in Silver's division. Anyway, the third fight of the middleweight boring snorefest was Tim Bosch taking on COSTA PHILLIPOU. A little better than the first 2, but like I said, being the best fight of the first 3 is like saying you're the best WWE match in a boring pay-per-view or something like that. But anyway, let's try to give something funny, because the first half of the card was just uneventful at all. And it was a little bit more exciting than the first 2, but that ain't saying much. Like I said, it was a okay fight. It was a decent stand-up, but like I said, like the first two, uneventful, but a little better. But it would just set the page for the main event, and the co-main event as well, with PHILLIPOU getting the victory with a TKO. He got him down with a decent punch. Like I said, some decent stand-up, but still uneventful like the last two, but better. I'll give that one a 2.0. Like I said, of the first three, that was probably the best one. And like I said, that ain't saying much. Now, on to the co-main event, which really woke the crowd up, in my mind, fight of the night. In the lightweight division, which could be a big number contenders fight for the next shot against Benson Henderson, in my mind, was Jim Miller taking on Joe LAUZON. It was supposed to be Gray Maynard against Joe LAUZON, but Maynard got injured. And boy, oh boy, was this fight exciting from the get-go. After 3 shitty fights, we finally got a great fight in the 4th round. Very violent, very brutal, awesome. Like I said, best fight of the night with Joe LAUZON getting his butt whipped most of the fight and bleeding in the first round and kept on bleeding throughout the fight. And it was just violent and intense. Great stand. It was like mostly stand-up in the first round. Great stand-up in the first round. Second round was mostly ground and pound. Mostly on the ground in the second round. And the third round was mostly stand-up again, but not as good as the first round, but still very exciting. Finally, after 3 shitty fights, we finally got a great fight, which ended with a victory for Jim Miller after dominating most of the fight. Joe LAUZON tried to fight back, but indeed, Mr. Miller was too tough for Mr. LAUZON. It was just a very bloody, brutal, intense match. I'll give this match a 3.5 sorry, out of 5. Like I said, fight of the night for me on this main card. It almost saved the pay-per-view if there was better matches, but this is the only highlight of the pay-per-view, kind of, besides the main event. Like I said, fight of the night right here. Jim Miller defeating Joe LAUZON. Very bloody, intense fight. What I've been waiting on. I was like, come on, man. Be better, man. The first 3 was shitty, and we finally got a great fight. Took 4 fights to get it. But that one good fight was awesome. So, there you go. Now on to the main event. For the UFC Heavyweight Championship. In a rematch from the first UFC on Fox. It was Cain Velasquez trying to regain his UFC Heavyweight Championship by taking on Junior Dos Santos. Now, as we all know, the first UFC on Fox fight, it was 1 hour, only one fight, and that was, of course, Dos Santos and Cain the first time, ended in about 30 seconds in the first round. Well, this fight tonight went all 5 rounds. Like I said, every fight tonight went all of the rounds. The first 2 went all 3 rounds unanimous. The third one went 3 rounds but didn't end unanimous. It ended by TKO. The 4th match, as I mentioned, Jim Miller and Joe LAUZON also went unanimous in 3 rounds. And this main event tonight went all 5 rounds. And I think by watching this fight going all 5 rounds, I think everyone wished there was another 20-second knockout. But Cain Velasquez, ever since his last fight, I think it was against Bigfoot Silva. I think that was his last fight at the UFC pay-per-view back at Memorial Day weekend when Junior defended his title for the first time against Frank Mir. Cain was wanting revenge so bad. He got a quick knockout victory and was sending a message to Junior. And indeed, Cain came out swinging from the get-go. He came out aggressive in the first round and almost got the victory in the first round with a killer, almost knockout punch to Junior, which I thought was over then and there. But after that, the match was indeed over for Junior. Junior did not have a good fight after that. Junior just got his butt whipped for most of the fight after that first round punch, near knockout. Junior was never the same. Cain was just dominant most of the fight, and Cain used all of his energy in the first and second round. It was all over Junior in the first, second round. The third, fourth, and fifth round was just them both hanging on. Their energy was sucked out of them by the end of the second round. It was just them hugging it out and just basically Junior just surviving the fight, and Cain just still on him, though. That's what Cain needed to do to get the win. Just keep punching, keep having the advantage. Junior tried to have some lucky punches here and there in the fourth and fifth round, but like I said, after that first round knockout, Junior had it finished for him. And indeed, yes, after 5 rounds, unanimous decision, and the new UFC Heavyweight Championship holder, revenge is so sweet. like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, as Cain Velasquez avenged his loss against Junior and regained, whatever you want to say it, the UFC Heavyweight Championship. Now, it was the good news and bad news. The good news is it lasted a little longer than the first fight. Bad news is I think it should have ended up in a round. I think it should have ended in the second round, because by the end of the second round, Junior was done, and he had to go on 3 more rounds of just them tiring out. They were just tired, especially Cain using all his energy to beat up Junior, but couldn't finish. After that energetic start, beating the crap out of Junior in the first and second round, Cain couldn't have the energy to finish him. They were both tired out by the third round, but Cain just couldn't finish. But despite that, Cain at least kept on punching, kept on having the advantage, kept on being the aggressor of this fight, which, like I said, gained him the UFC Heavyweight Championship to end the year. Now, what's next for the new champ, Cain? Maybe Overeem. Overeem's supposed to come back at UFC 156. So maybe if Overeem gets some more big wins, Overeem can be back where he was going to be, taking on the champ before he got busted for steroids. Let me say this fight was way better than the Frank Mir fight against Junior. Junior's last defense against Frank Mir was boring. This was a little better. Decent start in the first 2 rounds, but after that second round, they were both tired out, and Cain just couldn't finish. But Cain came out aggressive, and he still dominated the fight, being the aggressive in this fight. He wanted to get revenge so bad and avenge that loss, his only loss in UFC, by losing the title against Junior on 40 seconds on TV, and finally main event at pay-per-view, 5-rounder. I think it should have been a 2-rounder in my mind. I think they should have just called it after the second round, but that's not UFC rules to have someone throw the towel in. And I was kind of worrying that it would be like Silva Sonnen again. Silva Sonnen won when Sonnen dominated all 5 rounds until Silva got the last-minute submission with 20 seconds left in the 5th round. But it wasn't like that for Junior. He didn't get the surprise win with 25 seconds left after getting dominated by Cain. But indeed, Cain got the victory. I give this fight a 2.2 just because of that first round fury was so exciting, and they just wiped each other out because they're heavyweights. You know, heavyweights aren't built for 5-round matches. You know, when they can only go like at least maybe 1 or 2 at best. But like I said, they couldn't finish. Especially Cain had the chance to finish in the first round and couldn't finish in the first round, and try to do it again in the second round, still couldn't do it. And the last 3 rounds were just them hanging out, slugging it out, just hugging it out, until, of course, basically delaying the inevitable that Cain was going to win this fight. So, there you go. Cain Velasquez, your new UFC Heavyweight Champion. Regaining it. Like I said, who will face next? They all depend on the next UFC pay-per-view. And if Overeem wins or not, who knows who's next. But we'll see what happens. But with this being the last UFC pay-per-view video, it's kind of a mixed bag tonight. You know, there was like one really good fight, and the rest was just okay to bad. So, kind of a weird way to end UFC 2012. And with a lot of fights in 2013 coming up, with, of course, a lot, like 2 or 3 weeks in a row, with the UFC and FX, with Vitor Belfort against Michael Bisping. Then we got UFC on Fox with Mighty Mouse defending his title. And I think the week after that is going to be Aldo and Frankie Edgar. That should be a decent fight. So it should be three fights, 3 weeks in a row, like the last 2 weeks of January and Super Bowl weekend. So it should be a very intense year for UFC. But it's been okay. I didn't see a lot of UFC pay-per-views this year. I think I only saw like 2 or 3 this year because I was so busy. But there you go. UFC 154 was better. But 155 was just okay. That one great fight, but there wasn't enough great fights to say this pay-per-view. There's only one that one great one. The rest were just average to just okay. So there you go. That's my thoughts on UFC 155. 6.0 out of 10. Should have been more great fights, but just that, besides that one. And of course, new champion in the heavyweight division, Cain Velasquez, gaining revenge on Junior Dos Santos by beating him in 5 rounds. Should have been 2-rounder, but what? I'm just nitpicking. That is it for my UFC 155 review. This is my last UFC review of the year. Everybody have a very safe and happy new year, and see you in 2013. With that in mind, you've all been attacked for the last time in 2012 by the review from Zach. Like I said, be safe out there. Have a happy New Year and see you in 2013. Yeah.